Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Sovereign and Strong, How to See Beauty in Chaos, Shift Your Consciousness, and Create Peace Within. I'm Karitha Yeager, your host, and today's speaker is the wonderful Kaylin Castell. Kaylin is the co-founder of the Venus Alchemy and Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. She is a Magdalene and Divine Creation High Priestess in the lineage of Nicole Christine, in addition to writing monthly astronomy and astrology easing known as celestial timings for nearly 25 years. She enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teachings, both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. So welcome, Kaylin. I'm so happy to have you join this conversation.
I am so delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for doing this because, of course, it's a great topic.
Yeah. So timely.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to have you here because I just recently learned a little bit more about astrology, and I think it's fascinating and can really give you insight into many things and be used as a personal tool. So I just love to jump right in with you and ask you about what is shamanic astrology, because I don't think a lot of people know what it is and how can it benefit them.
Yes, so it is somewhat different. I mean, there are similarities, of course, through any astrology system, but this one is definitely designed to look at intent. Like, why have you come? What did your soul most want to experience in this experience coming into this life? And we look at it archetypally, mythically. You know, we know that we're in a rapidly changing time, so it's not to say, oh, you're here to be a doctor, or you're here to be a lawyer, or you're here to be a school teacher, or whatever. It's not like that. It's really, what's your soul here to experience? And it might be that you're here to expand consciousness. It might be that you're here to take a deep dive into the feeling realm. It might be you're here to help and heal. So there's lots of different reasons why people are here, and we can look at the chart as what is your intent? Why have you come? Well, and where will you find the most fulfillment and satisfaction in your life? Because if we're doing things that are not in alignment with our intent, people will often find they're miserable. But then they figure out how to get in line. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's like the energetic energy, the energy behind what you're doing. It's like anybody could approach being, say, a musician in any kind of way. Like there's lots of different ones. There's some who do spiritual music. There's some who do like rock and roll. There's some who do jazz music. It's like there's many different expressions of each of these archetypes. It doesn't mean there's a specific way to express it. But we are here to explore these archetypes. We're here to express these archetypes. They have us, they move through us, and to help evolve them, because we're in a rapidly speeded up evolving time right now. So everything we know about them, we also know is an evolutionary process as well. So there's that component, and that's really helpful. It's like you can look at a person's chart and tell a lot of things about them, and you know, based on things they say too, it's like, oh, your soul really wants to move in this direction, but you know, you're kind of going in that direction. It's not really what you were here for. And that can be super helpful. Or you give people a lot of confirmation because they're already headed in the right direction, but they maybe have some uncertainty about that. And so that can be part of what's happening. And there's certain cycles that we go through. So there's certain timings. I like to give a talk on something called timing is everything, right? So we have personal timings, we have collective timings, we have, you know, what's going on the planet, and some crazy wild things going on right now, as most people will relate to. Mm-hmm. So what time is it for you? What time is it for us as a planet? What season are we in? What moon phase are we in? What else is going on in the greater reality? And that we get a lot of clues about how we can work with that. And we look at it again as intent. Like all the planets have an intent. They're not here to punish us. They're not here to make our life miserable, though sometimes it can feel that way. You know, they might provide challenges, but there's a reason, and we understand that intent. We can get in alignment with that reason, and then we find we're empowered by that. So knowing those pieces are really helpful. One of the things we do in shamanic astrology is look at your age. So I often will ask people, how old are you? Instead of what's your sign, because some signs are not the be all end all that a lot of people make them out to be. And we have a specific way of looking at the sun. But the age somebody's at can tell you a lot of where they are in terms of the cycles that happen at specific ages. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other part of this is we also are reconnecting people to the night sky. Something we've lost. Understanding all of this, but also being able to go outside and go, oh, look, there's Venus in the moon, or there's Mars in the moon, or there's Jupiter and Saturn together, because they only come together every 20 years, and we've got that going on right now. And, so you can go out and you can also say, oh, and look what constellation they're in. And that actually gives us information. When we're open to receive the information that they have for us, and everybody's information may be different. It's not like, oh, this is what it means. I often, when I write celestial timings, I often say, this is kind of what I think it means, but you might get a different answer, or you might have a different experience around it, but just to get people started thinking in that line of what that might be. So yeah, that's it. And there's probably a lot more I could say, but a lot of people get overwhelmed just by that.
Well, it sounds like it's a really good roadmap, for kind of life in general. And I like how you said it can be used to make confirmation that people are sort of in their right intention, or to help them course correct and live a happier life. If they change things.
Isn't that what we all want?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I don't think anybody really wants to be miserable.
Yeah, no. And I love that you said about the night sky, because that's something that my dad had a telescope from my whole time I was, growing up, and to be able to look up at the sky and to pick out constellations and have an understanding of how things move, I think is so powerful, and makes you just feel like it just gives you like a sense of peace inside.
Right. The tagline for the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School is the living the magic of earth and sky. So, and because that's a piece we have been disconnected from. We live in a culture where people tend to watch TV, not go outside and look at the sky, and also was never taught, so it was something we were discouraged from. And literally we could say there were in the ancient cultures, everybody just knew all this stuff. It was part of what you grew up with, not so much anymore. And so our opportunity is to get these mysteries back, because as you said in the introduction, from the perspective of we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. It is a living relationship. And even if we're not conscious of how we're informing them, we are informing them. Right? And so we can say, and what's going on in the world today and how people are reacting and responding to all that is informing the mysteries. And ideally, we can get to a place where we could inform them with what we truly deeply feel in our heart, rather than just in a reactive place.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what we're seeing kind of play out right now. So I'd love to ask you, in relation to the cosmos, what are they saying right now? Like, where, I don't even know if I have the language to ask you correctly, but as far as like what the cosmos are saying about the shift that we are seeing right now on Earth and in humanity.
So there's two major things going on right now. And one, and this is sometimes challenging for people to get, especially the first time they hear it. A lot of times I had to hear it several times to really get it, and also go out under the sky and see it. And then I was able to really get it. And it took a while. Again, because, we weren't raised with this. It's not part of our natural knowing. It's just, it's like we have, and our brains aren't wired for it necessarily either. So now I've worked with this information for 30 years. It's like, seems easy, but it wasn't when I first started. So there's something in the sky about where the solstice is. So where the solstice sun rises on December 21st, there's the December solstice, and then we have the June solstice on June 20th this year, 21st sometimes, 22nd. So it does shift a little bit. But the place they're rising in the sky is on what's called the galactic crosses. So what that means is the plane of our solar system, and literally the plane of the solar system is the path that the planets follow across the sky. So you always see them on that, in certain constellations. You never see them anywhere else. They just follow this path. So that's also called the ecliptic, the path of the sun, the path of the planets. And so that's going across, across our sky. And then we have the Milky Way galaxy that we don't get to see as well when we live in a city. So if you're under dark skies, it's like just stunning, knocks your socks off. It's pretty amazing. And that Milky Way band that comes down, and depends on what time of the year and what time of the night, but sometimes it looks like it's coming straight down. And so the plane of the galaxy, plane of the solar system intersecting with the plane of the galaxy, creating a cross in two areas of the sky, one at the center of the galaxy and one at the edge of the galaxy. So when the solstice sun rises here, or any seasonal point is here, we know we're at the turning of an age. And it takes 26,000 years for it to come back to a starting point. So if we imagine that the December solstice sun is representing a starting point, we are at the end and beginning, because it takes about 144 years for the whole shift to take place, or at least 72 years. And we could say from 62 to 2034, we're in that shift. If we look at just the 72-year window, if we looked at the 144-year window, it's from 1926 to 2080, I think. And so it's a long time. And so we're in it for a while. So ending and beginning. So the thing about alchemy, it's something I love to talk about, is that when you're in the between, something's ending, something's beginning, but nothing's really fully ended and nothing's fully really begun yet. That's where we are in the cosmos. And this is way bigger than the so-called age of Aquarius. And that's a whole other conversation that can blow people's minds and also confuse them greatly. So we won't talk about that, but that's only a 2,160 year shift. We're talking about a nearly entire 26,000 year cycle that this can happen in the way that it's happening. Wow. So we've been in this shift for a while, and we'll continue to be in it for a while. So things are completing, we could say, whatever was set in motion for this last 26,000 years is needing to complete and be done. And then whatever we're setting into motion for the next 26,000 years is based on what we're intending, how we're showing up, how we're engaging our life and this possibility. And that can sound like a big responsibility, but if people are just living the best life they can and are making good choices for themselves, you're serving the intention for the next 26,000 years.
Yeah.
So there's that. So that's the biggest context of what's going on. I know, it's kind of mind-blowing. Like, oh, really? We've been in it for a while. We're going to continue to be in it for a while. And so the other context of what's happening in the year 2020 is there's this triple planetary alignment that hasn't happened in 733 years. It'll be 730 or 36 years, something like that. It'll be another 730 some years before it happens again in the part of the sky that it's in. And basically it's 3 planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And that Pluto is really about death and rebirth. It's also about empowerment, but first you have to die to what isn't empowering you, to what is disempowering you. And we can see that's what's happening. It's like all our structures are, and this is all happening in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn is all about the structures. And are they sustainable? Do they work? And if they're not working, how do we change them? Well, they're not working, so now we're in a situation where it's like, okay, something drastic has to happen to wake us up and for us to create new ways of being in the world. And, that's clearly what's been happening in the last few months, whether we wanted it to or not. And, we knew this was going to come. We knew it was happening, but we didn't know how it was going to show up. And it's pretty powerful, I think, in terms of the way it has shown up. And, hopefully people are questioning, like, am I living the life I want to live? Is this is this really what I want to be doing? And if it's not, then what can I do to change it? And how can I create a life that works and is sustainable and, is maybe supporting the shift of these ages, this great age that we're in, supporting that shift. And so that's what Pluto's doing, helping to destroy the old so something new can come in. And literally, I mean, if I think about, I often tell people when they're in a Saturn cycle, because Saturn's about similar to Capricorn, that you have to tear down the old house before you can build a new one. So that's the process we're in, and it's not always easy or fun. And you might think, oh, I kind of like some of the things about that house, even though it was falling down and it was rotting in places or whatever that might have been. Mm-hmm. But we still have to take that down in order to build a new. And then our once that's down, then we have to have a plan. How are we going to build the new structure that's going to work, that's going to be sustainable, that's going to support our needs, that's going to, be something that everybody can benefit from, not just a few. So what we've had in the past. So that's Saturn's helping with that, and Jupiter helps to expand our vision about how we can do that. And so, the dying to something is not easy. Birthing to something new is not easy. Right? There's pain, there can be pain involved in both ends of that. And or challenge or fear or whatever that is, that's our opportunity to transmute and transform. So that we can step into this new cycle with our whole self and not just part of ourself or whatever's been conditioned, we've been conditioned to. So that's our opportunity right now.
Wow. Yeah, and it's funny because some people, you think about space and the planets and the Milky Way and a 26,000 year cycle, and it's so big, but then you think about what we're seeing just, when you go outside or turn on the TV, and it's you can see it manifesting right in front of us. So it's like the macrocosm and the microcosm, everything is turning over.
Yes. And it needs to, because we don't want to build something, try to build something new with something that doesn't work anymore. It's like the old house, it needs to all go. And there might be parts of it that we retrieve, because there was a wisdom behind that, and there's a sustainability. And I think, we could look at indigenous cultures that have, more sustainable ways of seeing how to be in the world and their wisdom. We may want to incorporate, I think we will want to incorporate a lot of that wisdom, and how can we live more effectively with the earth. And I think of the Capricorn mysteries, it's about how you can be the most effective, the most efficient to get the best results with the least amount of effort. And so it's like that idea of doing less, accomplishing more, or, from a more Zen place or Tao place, it would be do nothing and accomplish everything. And that's really what source energy does. So, that could be part of the vision that we carry, is how do I show up? And it's not that we don't want to do what we do, because that's fun and it's creative, but it's like that idea of having to do it. And there's a pressure and a fear, if I don't do this right, I'm going to starve, or I'm going to be homeless, or whatever might happen. But if we lived in a culture where we realized we have more than enough resources for everybody, and we created it in a way that everybody's needs could be met, then they could just be creative. They wouldn't have to be doing things they don't like and they hate and that sort of thing. So that would be my vision, oh yeah, I want to live in that kind of a world.
Much more ease.
Right. Yes. Yes. Less stress, more ease, more fun.
Yes. And I think you had hinted to this earlier, but I wanted you to talk about the shadow side and how that kind of relates to our sovereignty or our lack of sovereignty, and embracing the shadow, and anything that you want to share about that.
Right. So interestingly, one of the things we do talk about is that integrating the shadow is an important piece for us, because oftentimes, and sometimes it's just things we're afraid of. Oh, I don't want to look at that because I'm afraid of it. Or maybe it's something we think is we judged against ourselves, like, oh, I don't like that part of myself. So we try to push it behind us or not look at it. Or the deepest fears that we might have can be that, but also our greatest talents and skills can be that. So being willing to face our shadow, being willing to embrace our shadow, and ultimately then instead of having it choose the way we go because we're running away from it, so we can't go towards it because we're running away from it, so it's actually choosing the direction that we go in, is our opportunity is to really stop and turn around and face it, whatever it might be. And I think I shared this with you in an earlier conversation, that one of my big shadows and one of my biggest fears was speaking in front of people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, literally my heart would pound so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I was going to die, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I might get flushed and I'd be, it was just, I could breathe rapidly. It was horrible. But I kept facing that fear over and over again until I got comfortable. And now it doesn't scare me. Still, I could be in front of a big room of people and I'll have a little heart racing going on and I'll say, wow, look, I'm still nervous. In small groups, I'm completely fine, but that's still the edge for me. But it doesn't determine what I do or don't do. Because if before it was like, nope, I'm hiding. I'm staying out of the spotlight. I don't want people to see me. That's too scary. And so that would determine what I did. And so embracing that, facing that, and transforming that, that's just one example. There's many, many examples I'm sure we could come up with around that. So we all have an opportunity, I'm sure, to look at what we're scared of. Maybe it's intimacy, really being in an intimate relationship with somebody. Maybe it's really following our heart's desire, because, what if I fail? Right? What if I'm a disappointment? What if I'm not determined enough? What if I can't do this? Those are kinds of shadow pieces that will hold us back from going towards something we really want to do. Mm-hmm. And so if we don't face it, we can't transform it.
Yeah. And I think now is a great time to face the things.
Yes.
Right. This cycle is beginning anew,
Right. Yeah.
Take advantage of that energy of sort of death and rebirth to rebuild.
Yeah. And being willing to die to the part of you that's afraid for whatever reason, or you're judged against, or you judged others because you feel like, because oftentimes when we're judging others, it's because it's something we fear within ourselves. So it's like, let me just project that onto you. Right? How fun. Yeah. And that may, sometimes there are people, and there's certain signatures a person can have on their chart we call being a shadow magnet, meaning that they're not doing anything, they're just showing up, and people get mad. People start, like complaining about them, shaming them, blaming them for whatever, because they got something activated within them. Literally, I saw this many years ago. I was on a trip and there was a woman who got triggered by another woman on the trip. And she said, oh, this is her problem, not my problem. By the end of the trip, she was like, okay, you reminded me of my mother. and so everything she did, because she didn't have a good relationship with her mother, everything this woman did, which none of it was bad. It was just, it was like her voice, her mannerisms, I don't know what exactly it was, kept triggering her into her anger about her mother. And so it created all this tension. But I think they finally resolved it at the end.
It happens. I've never heard of anybody being a shadow magnet, but now that you put the words in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a lot of those experiences in my life. In fact, before I was born, when my mother was young, when she got pregnant with me, she had just married my dad, and they found out 3 weeks later she was having a baby. So one side of the family was worried that my mother tracked my father into marrying him, and she was this awful woman. And then the other side of the family, my grandmother was like, I'm not that old. I'm not old enough to be a grandmother. So she was having her issues, and I'm like, I'm not even born yet. I'm already bringing up people's shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, it can work in a lot of different ways, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we need those people too, to
Yes,
help
because
us.
that is the agreement they made with the universe. It's like people have come in to be the ones that shine the light on the shadow. And some people don't handle that very well. And I know like shamans of tribes, they would learn how to deflect shadow to the earth or to someplace else because they would have a lot come back at them because they were shadow magnets. And it was about transmuting and transforming. But if it doesn't come up, then there's no possibility of people being aware of it. And so, and one of the things I also feel about it is that when you're a shadow magnet, if you get triggered by somebody getting triggered by you, you have shadow work to do. I've had some great opportunities with that. And then, but if you're not getting triggered by them being triggered and directing at you, it's not yours. You were just the catalyst for that to happen for them.
Yeah. A lot of that happening right now.
Yeah. Yes.
So what would you recommend to the viewers who are looking for a more direct way to connect with their divine feminine or inner goddess? Because I know that's like within your realm that you work in also.
Yes. So we do, women they have an emerging feminine identity for this life. Often we see that through what sign Venus is in. And there's other factors of where Venus is she morning star, evening star, underworld, where is Venus? So that adds to that Venus piece. What was the larger Venus cycle that was happening at the time a person was born? And every 8 years, Venus comes back and does that cycle again. So every 8 years, somebody has a Venus return. So for women, this represents their emerging feminine identity, and it's not just the sign Venus is in, but there's other factors. So we call that the Venus signature, because not everybody, I have Venus in Aries, not everybody with Venus in Aries is going to be the same, because there's different factors that need to be incorporated into that understanding. But you can get a decent understanding of what it means to be Aries, and then you're going to express it in your unique way. So the sign Venus is in, plus a few other factors of what's going on with Venus, gives us the signature, like, what is your emerging feminine identity for this life? And when you're able to put your energy toward that and really honor and celebrate that, it's so good. It's life-changing for a lot of women who've maybe just been ignoring it. Like Venus in Aries, she's a warrior woman. And I will defend and protect other people, but not myself. And I've been learning, I was like, oh, I have to have boundaries too. Great. Right? It's like, I'm not just going to do it for everybody else. And, when we had the Venus and Aries cycle that happened in March of 2017, the movie that came out within weeks of that cycle starting was Wonder Woman. So that was really pervasive throughout the consciousness. Also, Black Panther came out, and there were the warrior women, and there was the Me Too movement, and more women being elected to office than ever before, because women were stepping up to say, I am fighting for justice and a good cause, and that's really what Aries is all about. So we really saw that for about 19 months, super strong on the world stage, and then just because it's over doesn't mean it's over. I mean, it's still happening, but it really got ignited at that time. So so the Venus cycle can be really informative for men. This is their connection to the inner feminine, or to the inner beloved, or the inner other. There's different ways you could say it. So there might be a tendency to project that aspect of the feminine onto a partner, and their partner might not be that. Right? So and so that could be a problem, and then the relationship doesn't work, because if that's not what she's really about, he really needs to own it. And if he owns it and can do that for himself, it's like listening to that inner part of himself and honoring that part of himself, then he can be in a relationship with the woman that he's with, and not who he thinks she is. Really, right? Or who he wants her to be, or who he's projecting onto her to be. Yeah. So Yeah, and you know, Venus in Aries, I'll tell you, does not like to be told what to do. So when things started really falling apart in my first two marriages was kind of because I was being told what to do. I didn't understand this stuff necessarily with the first one, but I was just like, nope. With the second one, I was like, you know, you shouldn't be telling me what to do or who to be, because this isn't going to work. Right? So, uh, so knowing this can really help with relationships, can also help with our own growth, and it can give us permission to say, okay, you know what, it's okay for me to be fierce, it's okay for me to be you know, really interested in, like, say, the mother energy of Cancer, or the I want to help and heal energy of Pisces, or I want to be unique and completely expansive and on the cutting edge and leading edge of new and different things, the Aquarius goddess. Right? So I'm gonna create ways for people to expand consciousness and see things in a whole new different way. So there's those are some examples of some of the different expressions of the feminine. But we've lived in a culture that basically says mother, wife, caretaker, or nurse, or nurturer, or something. And so some of these other expressions of the feminine is changing, really has been changing. But how have been honored, like for my mother, who is moon in Aries, and she was Sagittarius. she had a fierce side to her, but she just was so repressed by, you know, her father was a colonel in the army and a doctor, and he always told her what to do, and then her husband did the same thing.
Oh no.
So yeah, so she was thwarted a lot, and she felt like that was what she was supposed to do. And I mean, I'd be just saying to her, you need to just like leave. Don't stay in this situation. I was constantly trying to encourage her to figure out her own thing, but she wasn't able to do that. So knowing this information now, and that there's many different ways of being, you know, expressing the feminine, it doesn't mean any is better or worse than any other. They all are valid. They all have a purpose. They all support something that's needed in the cosmos, and, you know, and so also the same thing for men. So my first husband, his Venus was in Taurus, and what he projected was to have a beautiful woman on his arm so he would look good. Kind of the shadow side of Taurus. and then when I became a mom and I was a little less interesting that way, he was like, you know, we wound up not staying together clearly. So yeah, my second husband had Venus in Aries, so he really understood that, and for a long time, until he started going into his challenges, and then he really wanted me to be his mother. And his mother was miserable, and he thought his parents had this ideal relationship, and I was just like, are you kidding me? So our opportunity is, when we know these things, we can make more informed choices for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into the free, like, lovely bundle of gifts that you have for the viewers, because it's all about some of it is about the Venus cycle, right?
Yes. Because, well, and we just started a Venus cycle that's going to last until January of 2022. And this is the Gemini goddess, and she is playful. She's here to be in service to spirit, but to remind us not to take ourselves so seriously, to have more fun, to be more creative, to be freer, because she's a free electron, you know. So for those who might not know, a free electron is an electron that can be with an atom over here for a while, and then can jump to another atom. It's like free, it's not stuck to any one place. So she's here to remind us that, but she's also a messenger, and she's a storyteller. So what's the new story? How are we dismantling the old stories? And one of the old stories I think that has been pretty pervasive in our culture is the idea of survival of the fittest. And that has just created competition, and there's not enough, and so I need to do whatever I can to survive, and that doesn't matter if I step all over other people and whatever, you know. It's like we really need to untell that, or dismantle that story and tell a new story of thriving together, so that we all support one another and there's enough for everybody. And it's not just that there's a little bit of resources and whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so part of what we're looking at with that, with the cycle, is how are we the new world storyteller, and what's the new world we want to tell a story? What does it look like? What is that about? And that's Gemini's job. She's really all about that. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. You want to tell people how they can, like, what else is included in that, your free gift?
So I think there's a 27-minute story of the descent of Inanna. And so here's the thing about the Venus cycle, that many ancient cultures really were attuned to the Venus cycle. And the Sumerians and the Babylonians, Sumerians were, the goddess was Inanna, and the Babylonians, the goddess was Ishtar. But their stories are pretty identical. But this story is the story of Inanna, because you have to pick one. And so it takes you through the descent into the underworld, dying, and the dying process, the being reborn process, and then the ascent. And that literally is what Venus is doing in the sky. And so the story is kind of weaving that, like, here's what's happening. And as Inanna is descending into the underworld, there are 7 gates, sometimes 8, but most, 7 Venus moon conjunctions. We just had one a couple days ago. And those Venus moon conjunctions represent the gates of the chakras. And so when Inanna goes into the underworld, she starts with the crown chakra, she goes to the third eye, that's the gate we're at right now, then the throat chakra, the heart chakra, and just on down. And then she gets to the root chakra, she goes, she faces her sister, the dark goddess, Ereshkigal, in the underworld. And basically it's her own shadow self, right? And her shadow self kills her. But she basically, she knew that she needed to have help, so she gets help and she is reborn, and she does get to ascend back out of the underworld. But it is a death and rebirth process. And really, the way that I like to see it is that when we work with this cycle, it is dying to who we believe ourselves to be, because we have a false, all of us have a false self that we've been conditioned to in a world that has a false reality. And being reborn to our true self. And that's the journey. That's the opportunity over the 19 months of any given Venus cycle. So that story kind of, it's like a little journey through that whole story and how that relates to the Venus cycle. And then there's a handout that tells more of the story, and also it allows people to see where they, what cycle of Venus they were born into, and they can also look to see when their next Venus return will start based on the cycle they were born into. But you have to look at the date before your birthday. So, and some people it will be just right before their birthday, and some people might be as much as 1.5 years before their birthday. The cycle starts, yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like good stuff. I can't wait to look at mine. So for the viewers to get that, just click on that link, and that will take you directly to Kaylin's free gift for you guys. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. This was so great to chat with you and learning more about shamanic astrology and sort of the bigger picture and the cosmos and how that's affecting us, in the world, but also like internally. So
yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. And I hope everyone goes forth and maybe at least goes out and look up in the sky.
Yes. The Milky Way, if you can see it, is amazing. But yeah, just connect with the stars. So yeah. So thank you guys so much. I'd love it if you hit reply and let me know what your favorite part of this interview was. And stay tuned for more episodes of Sovereign and Strong. We will see you soon. Bye.